Alright, we're going to dynamically calculate course duration based on the total amount of seconds of every lesson of this course and show this number in appropriate places in the UI. In here, then we also have to show course duration on the course page right here. And also, we're going to show amount of seconds of every lesson in the properly formatted form. So let's decide how we are going to do so. I prefer to create new accessor that is going to return the formatted duration. Let's see how it will work. Let's open up Tinker and fetch the first course from the database. And then having the course model, I would like to reference formatted length accessor, which does not exist yet, and get the formatted duration. That's what we're going to do next. So let's start with creating this new accessor on the course model. I'm going to add the skeleton for the new accessor called formatted length. Here we have to return the result of make method execution. That will be an attribute object. The first parameter will be the callback, which is going to be executed every time we're going to reference formatted length accessor. And for now, let's simply return 2 just to test it out. Let's get back to the terminal. Don't forget that every time we modify PHP code, we have to rerun Tinker in order for the updated code to load again. And now, after referencing formatted length accessor on the course model, I'm expecting to see number 2, because that is exactly the number that we have returned from the accessor. So let's think about the approach, how we can calculate the total duration of the course. And since we can get the length of every lesson, we can simply reference lessons relationship on the course model. And then, by calling method sum, we can calculate the total amount of values stored under a particular column that we can specify as the first argument into this method call. So right here, we are calculating the total amount of seconds stored under the length column, but only for those lessons that belong to a particular course. And there we go, we got the total amount of seconds of every lesson of this course. And as a next step, I'm going to simply move this expression, which calculates total amount of seconds of every lesson of the course, into our accessor right here. Then let's rerun Tinker once again and make sure that these changes are applied. The moment I'm going to reference formatted length accessor, I'm expecting to see the total amount of seconds, and indeed, it's working as expected. And just to better understand what SQL query is executed when we're calling method sum to get the sum of values of the particular column, we can uncomment that instruction from the app service provider that we have added earlier that prints out SQL statements on the screen and see what SQL query will be generated when we're gonna call method sum. Let's open up Tinker and run that same expression. Course lessons sum. And then to closely inspect this SQL statement, we can simply grab this generated query and paste it in the table plus. In the SQL editor, from here we can apply proper formatting just to better understand what is going on. So we are applying the SQL aggregate function called sum to the length column, but of course that is not the final result because we need to obtain the course duration in the formatted form, so we can clearly see how many hours and how many minutes the particular course lasts. So let's jump back into our accessor formatted lengths and write the following. I'm going to use carbon interval class and call method seconds, which takes the amount of seconds. Right here, I'm going to pass the total amount of seconds of every lesson that belong to the current course. And then by simply chaining a couple of other methods, such as cascade and toArray, we're going to get the associative array, which basically breaks down that amount of seconds we have passed into seconds method and gives us exact amount of hours, minutes, and seconds to actually represent that initial amount of seconds in the properly formatted form. Of course, it is better to see what this interval variable is going to contain eventually. Now let's open up Tinker and reference formatted length accessor. Let's see what the interval variable is going to contain. And as I have said before, this will be an associative array where keys would be the amount of hours, minutes, days, years, and so on that can be used to represent that initial amount of seconds we have passed into seconds method call. So having that, we can simply reference proper keys from this associative array to get the amount of hours as well as minutes and eventually build up proper formatted string. So in here, let's reference hours key of the interval array, and if this value is not empty, we're going to use this amount of hours and append h at the end, shorthand for hours. Otherwise, if there is no hours, we're simply going to use an empty string. And the same let's do for the minutes key. Let's reference minutes key. If this key isn't empty, we're going to use this amount of minutes and append m at the end, shorthand for minutes. Otherwise, we're simply going to use an empty string. And finally, we're going to combine these two values together to get final string separated by space. And we're also wrapping up this expression into the trim function call in order to remove that space in between in case one of those variables will be an empty string. And it's time to check the final result. Again, let's restart Tinker, fetch the first course from the database, and reference our accessor formatted lengths. This time, we're getting the duration of the course in the formatted form, just like we want to. Let's try it out one more time for another course. As you see, we're getting different value, so seems like this new accessor works as we expect. And in order to show up the formatted duration of the course, let's get back to the cardblade.php component, which represents individual course block. And instead of referencing length property, we're going to use our new accessor formatted lengths, like this. And this way, each course block now contains proper duration in the properly formatted form. Let's continue development in the next lesson, and the link to the source code of this project will be, as always, in the video description.